Okay, today is kind of the last leg of the journey on this hog butchering. What I'm doing here is cutting up the pork fat. You want to cut it to render your lard. That's what I'm going to be doing here. You want to cut it up in pieces. Now, the smaller the pieces, the faster the rendering will go. But you know, if you want like bigger pieces of cracked ones, because that's the little brown pieces left over after the lard has been rendered out, and people use those mostly for to put in cornbread. But I've seen people put them on salads and different things. But if you want those a little bigger, of course you need to cut your fat a little bigger. But if you're not worried about that, I mean, you can grind your fat for that matter. Now these pieces here are kind of like the scrap trimming pieces left over. So this is going to be more like my chicken frying lard. It won't be like pastry lard for making pie crust. So, finished cutting up that there. Let me show you that. There it is in the pan. I'll add about half a cup of water or so to that to keep it from sticking. You want to cook this really, really low because you don't want it sticking. Because if it burns your, lard, then you're done. So that's what it begins like, and I'll turn that on low with just a little bit of water. Here's the pot that's been going a while. It's cooking down. And like I say, you just want to keep this stirred. Make sure you keep it stirred. You see how it's starting to turn brown. It'll just get browner and browner, and by the time this is done, them little bits in there will be little, and they'll be just like a little piece of bacon, sort of. Here's my lard that I did yesterday. See how pretty, white, and clean that is? That'll be my pastry lard. That'll be what I'll make my pies with, pie dough. The crust. Now, once this cooks down to, renders out, I can either dip it out by spoonfuls with this, like here's my little jar. I'll put this over it and I'll dip it, a little time. Or you can take a colander like this and I'll line this with cheesecloth. And I put a pan under here and let all the lard come down. Then I'll put that pan back on the stove and heat that up. Now, there's no USDA recommendations for canning lard, okay? So, I'm just going to tell you, you can at your own risk. People have did it for years and years, but at this time there's no USDA recommendations. Now, of course, when you buy it in the store, it's just in that little plastic tub sitting on the shelf. So, this is canned. If you don't want to can it, just simply put it in like this, in the freezer, and you can freeze your lard. Do not use a narrow neck. Make sure you use like a freezer jar. A jar that's just as big, if not bigger at the top than it is at the bottom. Otherwise, this is going to bust in your freezer. But, I did can this, and, you'll see all kinds of stuff. I recommend just a pressure canner like you would with broth or meat, like this. And I put that in there and I pressure can that for 45 minutes. So, that's how I do mine. Like I say, I'm going to repeat, there is no USDA recommendations for canning lard. So, you can easily freeze it if you want to do that. But, that's the lard. That's what we got going on today. And, yesterday, we cut up the hog and did all the sausage and whatnot. I do have the sausage mixed with all the seasonings and ground in the refrigerator. And tomorrow I will be stuffing the actual sausages. Oh, I'll show you this. This is my broth, the pork. So what I do is, after we're all done butchering, my husband cuts up the bone pieces and where they'll fit in the big canner. I put them in that big canner and I cover the bones. Now all the bones that I have left will go in this canner, about 3/4 full. And then I'll put a cheesecloth in there with bay leaves, carrots, onions, and dehydrated celery. and I'll fill that up with water, cover all the bones with water, and I'll pressure cook that for half an hour. And then when I get that out, I pour that broth through that colander right there. And then I go through the bones and just pick off the meaty pieces, making sure there's no gristle or anything like that in it. And then you need to pressure can any meat 90 minutes in quarts at 10 pounds of pressure. Any broth can be done at 25 minutes a quart at 10 pounds of pressure in a pressure canner. Do not water bath any meat or any meat product. So that's it. That's what's going on with the hog, and we're about to wrap it up. But that's how I do my lard. I hope you learned something, and thanks for watching. Have a good day.